and welcome to the CUBE Pod, episode 25. Breaking news. We are podcasting live on X, formerly Twitter, tweeting, podcasting, streaming, periscoping, whatever the hell they're going to call it on X. Dave Vellante and John Furrier for episode 25 of the CUBE Pod. As we're rocking and rolling, Dave, we're streaming on X, formerly Twitter, at the CUBE handle. Thanks to Andrew and the team in the studio, the super studio, we're calling it, powering the super cloud, the super cube, the super cube pod. Thanks to Elon Musk. Actually, Jason Calcanis is always one pointing out the new features. So thanks to Jason at Jason Calcanis. Thanks for that, Dave. Kicking off episode 25. We got Super Cloud 4 scheduled in October. We got big events coming up. We got VMware Explore next week. Right after that, Google Next. Tons of news this week. So much happening in our world. Intel's deal falls apart. They scrapped the $5.4 billion acquisition of Tower Semiconductor. Stock is tumbling. I know you got an opinion. The Silicon Wars are at it again. ARM kicking ass. Cisco earnings came out. They came on very, very strong. Looking very good there, as we had predicted and been covering like a blanket. Probably the best analyst group on the team right now is the CUBE research group on Cisco. Databricks, by breaking news in the information today that they're doing another raise. That's actually not a real story. That's not accurate. So the information got it wrong in their reporting. They're technically not raising money, but they're actually bringing money in. It's not a raise, it's a liquidity. I'll get into that later in my rant section, but certainly, again, another report. They kind of got it right, but didn't get it right. So no context there, accuracy. So we'll clarify the information's reporting on that. Gen AI hype is subsidizing, or is it just grandstanding or cluelessness? Gary Marcus weighs in, the king of AI in his mind, saying that AI is not hyped up what it be. He's talking about generative AI as an application. I think he's missing the boat there, but I see his point. Everyone's trying to be the expert in AI, right? It's fun to watch, actually. I'm the expert in AI, Dave. Dave. We're going to get into that in the rant section as well. The Lahaina tragedy in Maui continues to be sad tragedy story, and that's ongoing. It hits home in California because a lot of people go to Hawaii, and obviously everyone knows that's ever been on a honeymoon or a trip. I spent a lot of time there. Zias Carvella, our CUBE alumni and CUBE Collective member, was there and bought a shirt from the bike store there. He likes a big biker. It's gone the next day. It's so sad. And of course, we got exclusive story coming up with AWS CEO. We got the official news that we will get the scoop on getting Adam Selesky one-on-one prior to reInvent coming up in a few months. Just a big fall coming up. The receding cybersecurity tide. Some are swimming naked, as Rob Hofer, editor-in-chief, points. The AI universe continues. Gartner has finally labeled Gen AI in the hype cycle. Dave, welcome to episode 25, streaming live early, by the way. This is a preview. If you're on Twitter watching right now, give us a retweet. This is a moment. Right. So good to be here. Great to kick off the pod.
Yeah, good to be here. I appreciate you guys moving the schedule. I got a wedding to go to tomorrow, so I'm going to be hightailing it out of here right after we record breaking analysis. We're moving that up. So I'll be working late tonight, John.
It's awesome. It's awesome. And look, so I can see the pod over there. Awesome to Elon for making that Twitter feature on X feature. But Dave, a lot of going on in tech right now. I mean, I'm reading the Wall Street Journal. I know you got your copy there this week. A lot of great stories. The economic climate right now is interesting. Mortgage rates hit highest level in more than 20 years. That's interesting. You got an interesting real estate market. Are they controlled by big tech and big PE right now, private equity? A lot of discussion about that. And then also the tech side continues to boom. The AI thing, a lot of people kind of chiming in with it's not going to be that big of a deal. There's a lot of total BS being floating around in the marketplace right now on AI. And I got to say, it's kind of fun at some level, but it's the classic hype market. A lot of people come out of the woodwork and claim that they are AI gurus. We saw this with social media. Remember the social media guru phase?
John, we saw it with COVID. You remember everybody was a COVID expert overnight, right? That's what we do.
So it's fun to watch, but a lot of the stories, they're missing the context. I mean, generative AI is the hottest thing. Okay. We've been using it, and actually we're farther along with the CUBE engineering team. We just had an all hands meeting with our team, and Ken Libby and our team gave a great update on that. And we're actually way ahead of some of the other people in the marketplace, and we're just in by kind of default. So we're going to lean into that. The AI hype is legit. Okay, I'll just say this right now. What people don't understand, these major market forces is a little error of pop of wow magic. Um, some people compare it to the iPhone moment. It's really not the iPhone moment. It's really something different. It's the web moment. It's the moment of of machine learning. Okay. And so I think what ChatGPT did is gave that magic. I call it the Harry Potter moment. I think what episode podcast day we were talking about the magic of Harry Potter, give the spell and all of a sudden the machine does something. I think it's not an iPhone moment, but that Harry Potter moment where people saw it and said, well, that's magic.
Well,
And it's over now. But the thing is, it is changing everything. And it will be infused in software. And we said that too on that episode. So I think a lot of people that are shooting from the hip, these so-called experts like Gary Marcus, don't get AI. Right? They don't think they understand the operational impact of AI. And I mean that in not a pejorative way. He probably knows AI academically, but he probably doesn't understand the operational aspect of it as well as like we do in terms of where we see companies investing in AI.
well, let's tell people, let's explain to people. So Gary Marcus, smart guy. He's a scientist. He's an author. He's obviously a smart dude. Wrote an article on Substack. What if Gen AI turned out to be a dud? And he's got a picture of this
and it's a question mark.
This big blimp. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So that's kind of okay. But then
blimp explodes.
And basically saying, hey, a lot of people think that they basically saying there's no revenue. And I'll tell you, so this is where AI and generally and Gen AI specifically is going to make money. It's like reducing labor costs. I've been saying this for a while. It's about cutting the need for labor because that's where most companies' expenses are. Yeah. And I don't care what anybody says. I just know from personal experiences that Gen AI has made me more productive. It's actually, theCUBE AI, we know this. We used to have a human doing all the clips. Now we have AI doing it. You push a button and the clips are better, right? And way higher volume, so it allows scale. Productivity numbers are actually up. I'm not sure output is up, but productivity is up. So I think we're going to come into a productivity boom. But again, it's not necessarily about the revenue and the direct monetization. It's about making organizations and people more productive, and that's going to be trillions of dollars of economic value, in my opinion.
Yeah, Gary completely missed the boat on this post. He completely doesn't understand the reality. He's comparing LK99, that big hyped superconductor thing, to the AI hype, and the problem
that would have been cool if it were true.
I wish that was true. Actually, I wish that hype came reality. But the AI hype is happening. But we talked about last podcast. We said that the earnings from AWS and Azure fell short on the AI side, specifically Azure and Microsoft. As we pointed out and discussed on that podcast episode, Microsoft didn't see the revenue. Why? Because there is no revenue yet. It's coming. This is the build-out phase of the Cambrian explosion. So this is the reality of AI. It is a Cambrian explosion for developers and new kinds of applications where the ones that innovate on that labor arbitrage that you're talking about or that benefit are going to refactor their applications. It's the same game, same application, just refactored. That's where the winners are. That's where AI will soar. And that's where you got to squint through the hype and BS and saying, how does it impact the top and bottom line? You'll see it right there in the efficiency.
So Benedict Evans there's a tweet that Marcus put in his post. He's saying, I don't want something that writes mediocre prose. The error rate means I can't use it for data. He says, I've been using ChatGPT 3.5 and 4 for half a year now. And really, I haven't worked out anything that's useful for me. I mean, I totally disagree. I do my breaking analysis today, right? I threw a bunch of data at ChatGPT and I said, make this into a table, right? Okay. And it just took all the data and just made it into a beautiful table. It would have taken me at least twice as long to do that. And then it did a table and it wasn't that pretty. I said, give me some HTML code to make this table pretty with colors. It gave me the HTML code. I did something else while it was generating that code. I put it into my HTML editor and then boom. And I just took a screenshot of the table, put it into my breaking analysis. It would have taken me, I don't know, maybe 20 minutes to do that if I had to do it myself. And it probably took me 5 minutes. It was, so I have hundreds of examples like that. Now, maybe that's beneath, Benedict Evans, right? He doesn't need that, but I will say this. I do think ChatGPT's, I think Jeff Jonas is right. Entropy is winning. I do think in some ways it's getting worse, right? I think, but it still gives me good ideas, right? And it's just when my brain is fried, I have it do something for me. Let's just grunt work. And I'm like, okay, good. I got this. So I disagree with that premise.
Well, I mean, there's two sides of the story that I think are worth talking about. One is the inflated expectations of AI.
Yeah, that's fair.
They're definitely inflated.
Yep.
Okay, but the lack of utility is off. I agree with you 100%. The people who think there's no utility in this is ridiculous. And Evans knows better, by the way. So I know Benedict Evans is a great analyst, very strong. He's like in that strategy kind of world. He should know better than that, but he's obviously not doing a lot of writing. He's not doing, if he thinks there's no utility for ChatGPT 3.5 and 4, he's probably not doing anything useful. And if he's listening to this, I'm happy to debate that anytime, because like you said, there are probably things that he could be more efficient if he was publishing. If he's looking to write letters to friends and emails and stuff, I can see his point.
That's a wrong use case. He's this quote, my friends who tried to use ChatGPT to answer search queries to help with academic research have faced similar disillusionment. Well, no shit. Don't use it for that. A lawyer who used ChatGPT for legal research was excoriated by a judge and basically had to promise in writing never to do it again. Yeah, you're an idiot. That's not what it's there for.
By the way, that's not Benedict Evans. That's
Gary Marcus, right? Yeah,
Benedict Evans is smart.
No, thank you for clarifying that. But I mean, that's the wrong use case, right? It's like, so if that's what you're using ChatGPT for, you're wasting your time. Use it for ideas. Use it to get a first draft. Use it. You know what I use it for too? For sometimes I miss things. Like, maybe I get 4 out of the 6 bullets that I'm supposed to have, or 6 key points, and ChatGPT will give me ideas. Oh yeah, you know what? Maybe I missed that, or ways to consolidate things. So I
use it all the time. I prepare for interviews. I just had an interview this morning with an AI startup with the CEO, and I asked him, "Hey, what would give me some topics you'd like to talk about?" And he said, "Here's the topic I'd like to talk about, and here's some of my talking points." I essentially edited out. I turned the talk into a question and his talk track into answers, and I plugged it into ChatGPT. I said, "Write me a blog post essay on it." And it was unbelievable. There was zero hallucinations.
How many interviews have you and I done in the last 13 years each? I don't know.
Thousands.
5,000, maybe more. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm definitely over 5,000 for sure, if not more.
When we do, and me too.
Well, theCUBE has done a total of 14,000 interviews.
No, more than that. No, more than there's almost 20,000 videos on our YouTube channel.
Yeah, no, that's guests. Those are guests. No, 18,000 guests, over 30,000 videos.
So here's the thing, since I do the same thing, but prior to ChatGPT, I would still spend a lot of time preparing for interviews, thinking, researching, digging, doing Google queries, etc. I will ask ChatGPT, give me some questions. I'll ask it, to get me started, and it'll always come up with like 2 or 3 things that it would take me a while to think of. I might have got there, I might never have gotten there. And so then I edit it. I add my own, words. I put it into my own tone. I think of things that ChatGPT may not know because I got, tribal knowledge and history. And I just find it to be a good helper.
There's a lot of AI investments right now going on. The startup scene is still robust, even though there's one article out there I saw was the first one. It's like, oh, the VCs aren't into the seed rounds. You show me a VC that's not interested in an AI seed round, and tell you a VC that's going to be out of a business. So it's like that is complete horseshit story. So the startup market is hot. The prices might come down on valuations, given that some people are just, rolling a front end to ChatGPT. So there's a lot of head faking. But some of the VCs that are doing seed, they're smarter than that. So I think the seed investment will continue to be dominating the coverage, and absolutely more startups are going to jump in. This is a Cambrian explosion. I think, again, startups are going to be booming. I said this to Swami in February at Amazon when I interviewed him. He agreed. This is a next-gen Amazon moment. AWS was built on the back of startups for the first gen in SaaS. I think the second generation of SaaS and platforms is going to be powered by AI, and there's no doubt in my mind the cloud guys will be continuing to win. Only the spoils go to AWS, Azure, and Google, and maybe Oracle, who's coming up in a pretty good cloud move there. So cloud will win. But the market of white space for startups is going to be amazing. That's why I'm a little bit nervous about the M&A market right now, Dave, being kind of clueless, because of the whole gutting out of the overhype, or the not overhype, the overinvestment bubble that burst. We're living in a tough market right now for funding in the capital markets. So, it's like bad food poisoning. You got to just get it out of your system. And then ultimately that's where we are in Silicon Valley right now. The market is just toxic because of the overreaching and frankly, the drinking from the trough. The shitload of money that was made over the past 10 years has been incredible. So now everyone's got their numbers. The music stopped. Everyone's looking for a chair, musical chairs, kind of analogy. It's going to take some time for this market to reset. But the one shining bright light is the AI market on the startup side. So I'm super pumped for that. That's definitely a tailwind.
I think it's a great time to start a company. But I interviewed a company yesterday, a company called Apt Edge, and they've only raised $22 million. They started in 2018, and I was like, oh, basically, are you screwed like all those other companies that raised money in 2018 and now can't do a B round or a C round? And they're like, no, actually, we get plenty of dough. We're not doing a raise right now. But the fact is, because they, quote unquote, only raised 22 million, you've seen companies raise hundreds of millions of dollars, unicorns. And so I'd much rather be in that position, where expectations are reasonable, and they've got traction now. I think they got product market fit, or they're close to it, and now they can scale. And so I think it's a great time to start a company, John. I really do.
Absolutely. I'm just watching our Twitter feed. We got 2 viewers. So
two viewers. We're rocking it.
We've been shadow banned.
That's horrible. Well, what are you going to do? You got to start somewhere.
Yeah. We're going to win one viewer at a time.
Well, I think I told you so. So I was stoked to see that the breaking analysis.
I got 4 viewers. Hey, look at that Twitter. 4 viewers.
There you go. The breaking analysis.
Tell your friends. Let's get to 10. Elon Musk, where are you?
But I want to shout out to the CUBE pod. So breaking analysis broke 1 million downloads last week, cumulative. Yeah. And when I went back and looked at where the CUBE pod is relative to where breaking analysis was in its first 6 months, and CUBE pod's 4x where we were with breaking analysis. So I'm encouraged. It takes time to get this stuff going. I get great feedback from people. Somebody met with somebody last night, said, hey, I love your CUBE pod, you and John riffing it out, arguing with each other, East Coast, West Coast. You were the time. I'm in my hoodie today because I'm behind. But
Dave, I can't believe you're not wearing a tie. I'm going to post this topics on Twitter here.
That's bad. Can I say? But yeah, I got a lot of shit to do. I'll be here late tonight. I got to pick up my son at the train station at midnight. So I'll be working all night.
Well, I want to get into the whole. There's a continuing investment in AI with GPUs. We're seeing startups, just the challenge coming out to challenge NVIDIA, which in the spirit of AI, I got my NVIDIA cup right here.
NVIDIA.
And then, of course, Amazon's already well into its chips and software. Amazon's in the race. All this pointing to, and we've covered in detail, I know the research you've put out personally on Intel and the chips at Amazon, the ARM momentum, we called it out at AWS, has been discussed all the time on theCUBE. But the deal this week that caught my attention was the Intel fell apart with their $4.5 billion acquisition of Tower Semiconductor, the foundry. Yep. So, you've been on this from day one, and we've been talking about it on theCUBE, and, Pat Gelsinger might not be able to pull it off. Intel could go under. I mean, this is the iconic brand, Dave. Intel inside. Intel, there's a possibility that Intel could go bankrupt.
I just want to say, I mean, sometimes it sounds like we're rooting against Intel. We're not. Intel, the United States needs Intel to succeed. And number one. Number two is, look, we love Pat Gelsinger. I mean, he is an icon. He's an industry legend. He's a friend of theCUBE's. And we have deep, deep respect for him. But I look at this, it's just the news just keeps getting bad. I mean, they were celebrating and everybody, some of the analysts were high-fiving Intel's quarter and they beat expectations, but their revenues were like precipitously down. Okay, but they beat expectations because PC strength, and supposedly they gained share. Look at this. The problem is the same. First of all, the Tower Semiconductor deal would have been a good partnership for Intel, despite its cost, because it gets them closer to 2 nanometer. Pat has said, we're going to get to 2 nanometer. We're going to leapfrog everybody and go right to 2 nanometer. And this is where, to your point, Intel could go bankrupt trying. So now they're going to have to partner with Tower Semiconductor, but it's better to own them. But the problem is the same. They are behind on wafer volumes. ARM has 10x the wafer volumes of Intel x86, and that is the fundamental problem. Everybody knows Moore's law. Let me just take a second. Theodore Paul Wright was an aeronautical engineer. He came up with Wright's law back in, I got to look it up. It's back in like in the early part of, last century, mid part of last century. He died in 1970. So Wright's law, it's really ARK Invest has an interesting page on Wright's law. What is Wright's law? Pioneered by Theodore Wright in 1936, Wright's law aims to provide a reliable framework for forecasting cost declines as a function of cumulative production. In other words, it states that for every cumulative doubling of units produced, costs will fall by a constant percentage. Let's say in semiconductors, that's 15 to 20%. And that's really important because when you go to the next generation semiconductor, because volumes are much lower at the initial curve, it's the learning curve, your costs are going to be higher until you surpass that volume. So if you can't double your cumulative volume, you can't cut your cost as dramatically. Well, ARM, because it doesn't make chips, it licenses technology and sends them off to TSMC and Samsung. ARM wafer volumes are exploding. Now, Pat will admit he's behind on wafer, but he says, but we're leading on packaging, on transistors, and that's where I call bullshit. You know who's leading on packaging? Apple, NVIDIA, Samsung, Tesla, even AMD. They're making smaller system on chip packages. And so, like I said, Intel wants to go right to 2 nanometer, and Tower Semiconductor was going to help them do that. Getting foundry customers is a top priority for Intel, but the problem is the foundry customers that I've talked to who have, gone there and stuck their toe in the water say, it's not ready. They have told me that Intel has probably got 5 years before it's going to be able to get the reliability and quality that they need for these customers to trust them. So I don't know what to tell you, John. I mean, it's not a good story for Intel, even though, again, Pat is out telling putting on the bold face. He was in China, I don't know, last month trying to get this deal to go through. China ended up blocking the deal. But, Intel, continues to be in trouble, in my opinion. I am not.
Do you think they could go out? Do you think my statement that they could go out of business is legit?
Yeah, I think Intel could go broke trying to compete in foundry. And I've said before, I think, in my opinion, what Intel should do and should have done is split off the design from the manufacturing. They should do a manufacturing deal with number 2, which is Samsung. They should do a joint venture, base it in the United States, get the US government to put some dough into it, reduce the reliance for the industry on TSMC, and through that joint venture, use the Samsung expertise to try to get Apple's business, because that's the only fucking way they're going to be able to get volume to be able to compete with the volume and the economics that ARM has achieved.
Yeah, I think the Intel Inside generation from our old school, the X generation that grew up with PCs and the boomers before us, was the PC, and now it's the cloud. If they don't get the cloud business, if they don't get the edge, the IoT, Internet of Things, they're toast, right? They have to get Apple. They got to get AWS. They got to get Google. They're buying servers in massive quantities. They got the OEMs on the traditional side, so I think they'll do well in some of the data center plays. But they got to get the cloud. That's what the scale is. I totally agree with you.
ARM designs are going to dominate at the edge. The edge is all about. It's about low cost. It's about low power, and it's about great performance. And ARM has the advantages in all of those. You think about. I heard him on TV recently talking about NPUs, the neural processing unit. He said, yeah, we were a little bit behind on that. I mean, Apple's been doing this for 5 years. Tesla, basically, that's how Tesla got rid of LiDAR and is using cheap cameras, using the neural processing units that they basically programmed on their own. And so, again, the edge is going to be the winning play at the edge is going to be the chips that have volume. So it's going to be ARM-based designs. You know what else? Broadcom, because Broadcom's doing all this connectivity, Hock-Tan will say, we don't do CPU, okay, because we can't dominate CPU, but we're going to dominate all the connectivity and all the cross, connectivity between all these components. And so companies like that are going to win. And so, and I just, again, I'm rooting for Intel, but I think that Pat has basically come out and said it's an execution problem. And while Intel has had execution problems, I think the problems are more fundamental. And believe me, I perfectly understand Pat has forgotten more about the semiconductor business than I will ever know in 10 lifetimes. But
can't count out Gelsinger. But
right.
the move to the government and playing in the national security card seems a little desperate to me. And I think Intel, and that's why people are dumping the stock.
Well, they are desperate. Right. I mean, they are desperate.
That's my point.
$50 billion from the U.S. government isn't going to do shit. I'll tell you the other thing is if frankly, Apple, Amazon, maybe certainly the U.S. government, Microsoft, they could all write checks. Their balance sheets are such that they could write checks. Facebook could write checks, and actually, if they gave a shit about the U.S. competitiveness, they could write some big checks and funnel it to Intel. Maybe do that joint venture with Samsung, entice Apple to do business with them, because that's where all the volume is right now. Why do you think TSMC is so effective? Is because it sucks up all of Apple's volume, and so. It's just, I mean, I love the aspiration, and I listen to Pat very carefully, and he says all the right things, but I think there's a fundamental type A problem that they're facing. And I'd love people to tell me I'm wrong. I mean, I do see analysts out there saying, hey, that was a great quarter. I'm like, are you fucking kidding me?
Yeah, those analysts are getting paid, by the way, retainer to say nice things about them. We know who they are, and they're on TV doing it. Look, Intel's got problems. They're desperate when they're getting money. If they go to the Saudis to get money, the game's over, right? That'll be the tell sign of Intel. And they're hurting, and we want them to win. I love Intel. I think they're they're like Hewlett Packard to me. They're the Silicon Valley story, the Silicon Valley, Intel, HP, the original HP. I got a book behind me. You can see right there. It's the Bill and Dave Packard, management by walking around. I got that when I worked at HP. Great companies with great culture. If Intel loses, okay, that would be the sad moment. I think Pat Gelsinger should have been on earlier to save the company, but I think it may be too late.
Yeah, I mean, I'll give you something else. So we all know Moore's law. When you do the math, you probably heard me talk about this many times. When you do the math on Moore's law, everybody says Moore's law is dead. You do the math, it's like basically, the doubling transistors every 2 years, whatever, doubling performance. It's about 40% annually per performance improvement. It's a little less than that these days. But if you look at the combination, look what Apple's doing. Even you go back to the A15, which is, A15 and A series inside your smartphones. You look at the CPU, the NPU, the GPU, which it uses for the screen, the accelerators inside of that, the annual increase in performance is over 100%. You compare that with x86 annual improvements at 30% or 40% even, if you want to give them the benefit of the doubt. Apple was doing this 5 years ago. They were on that curve.
Yeah.
And they're using an ARM-based design with the M1, with the A series. Amazon's on that curve with the Annapurna stuff, even though they're doing their own silicon. It's interesting to hear Hock-Tan talk about merchant silicon versus the in-house stuff. Obviously, Hock-Tan wants the in-house stuff, or wants the merchant stuff. He doesn't want people doing in-house. But there are strategic reasons to do in-house silicon to be able to get on that curve and control your own destiny. And I think Intel's 5 years behind. Could they somehow get to be the number 2 foundry by the end of the decade? I mean, I think if they did some radical moves to get the quality up and get Apple volume, that would be awesome. I just think they got a long road, and I think it's the probability. I would put it less than 10%.
Yeah. Well, let's hope that Intel. Good analysis, Dave, as always. I'm surprised that Intel doesn't make better moves, but we'll see. We'll keep in touch with those guys.
It's making all the right moves. If in fact, if you said this is your strategy, you have to execute this strategy. Go. Pat Gelsinger is doing all the right things, but I think there should be a discussion about, is this the right strategy? Is this the right plan? And I don't think it's the right plan. I think the better plan is to split the company and do a JV with somebody who's got a foundry and is way further along than, I mean, Intel has foundry, but way further along than Intel foundry.
Yeah, they got to carve a path to the future. I agree, and I think that's a good strategy.
This is where the last thing I'll say is this is where Andy Jassy's quote about there's no compression algorithm for experience. More than any other market, it matters more in semiconductors.
Yeah, you can't fake it till you make it there at all. It's one of those markets where you got to be on the right side of the trend line, and you got to do it years in advance, and you can't like just jump in. There's diseconomies of scale, Dave, as you know. We talk about it all the time. These diseconomies of scale in these markets. Speaking of diseconomies of scale, transitioning to the Databricks story, because I want to get to that, because the information has reported that they're doing another round of funding. SiliconANGLE picked up on that news and reported it, but we still got more information. They didn't get it 100% right. The information is known for breaking stories. We've got a great organization over there. Jessica Lesson has built out a great business. She's kind of in the class of theCUBE. She started 10 years ago, a couple of years after we started. Modern kind of firm, doing good work, but they broke a story, but I don't think they got it right. They talked about.
I was surprised when I saw that, John. I'm like, what? This can't be right. This is counter to everything we know. Every bit of information we have.
This is the problem of getting.
Explain it, please.
So first of all, it's not. First of all, they got the story. They're raising money, but they didn't get it right, and it's hard to get this right because it's very nuanced. When you do the kind of investigative that we do, we go deep in the trenches. We kind of know the story. I'm glad they confirmed it because we can now talk about it. But the fact of the matter is, they are raising money, but they're not raising money because they need it, and not raising money because they're going to take a new beachhead. That's the wrong story. They're raising money because they can. Databricks' valuation was what, $28 billion, roughly around that during the peak of the market.
I would say it was even higher. I would say it was closer to mid to high 30s.
Bottom line is massive valuation. They raised over $1 billion in cash. That's like, and they're doing close to $1 billion in revenue. So even if they're losing that much money, they still have plenty of cash. They don't need the cash.
No, the balance sheet is good, to your point. Right.
So given this capital markets, public markets sideways and private markets, there's demand for the stock. So, I always talk about this in Silicon Valley. When you have these hot companies like Databricks with a comp like Snowflake out there, if you're an investor, you go, hey, I can come in, get a valuation, given it's kind of a down market. If they went public today, there's no way they'd have that valuation. So there's probably a valuation reduction, hence not going public. And so they got to get their fundamentals and stay private. Why would they go public? It's a smart move for Ali